All right, guys, it's Chris Pree with another Wicked Smart Masters class. And today, the podcast was actually hijacked by Zach. He wanted to interview Eddie Speed, our next guest. Guys, I'll tell you something. The experience that you're going to get out of this interview with Eddie Speed is absolutely amazing. Every time I interview Eddie, and it's been, I try to do it yearly, doesn't quite fall that way. You can look up his old episodes. But the education is crazy. It's almost like we pull Eddie in, and we get an update on the market from a global standpoint after his 44 years in the business and bought somewhat, you're going to hear him talk to Zach, but I think it's over 50,000 notes. That's quite a lot of experience, guys. And I say this at almost every show, that I want to bring people on with experience. And for selfish reasons, I guess you could say, we bring Eddie on and we get educated on the pulse of the market. What are the banks doing? How's that going to affect? How are notes being affected? He has a crazy education since he founded NoteSchool, by far one of the best training companies that focuses on educating individuals purchasing both performing and non-performing discounted mortgage notes. I don't want to give this much more energy than that. I want you to be able to enjoy the interview with Zach and Eddie Speed because he's just a plethora of information. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, this is Zach Beach, CEO, Smart Real Estate Coach. As you heard in the introduction from Chris, I'm going to go ahead and hijack today's podcast. We have had an amazing person, Eddie Speed, on quite a few times. As I look over to my right-hand side, we've had Eddie Speed on episode 27, episode 110, and episode 370. So as you can imagine, we go to Eddie for very specific things. And today we're gonna dive into note buying. I know we were just talking about offline. We're not going to talk about creative financing today. We're going to talk about note buying. And Eddie is the guy that you want to listen to when it comes to this. But more importantly, Chris and I looked at him as a mentor and somebody that we can constantly go ask questions to. I want to give you in this introduction, Eddie, you actually brought together some profitable deals for us without you probably even knowing it. Back, I don't know, it was quite a few years ago, you invited me, Chris, and Nick down to Texas, and you shared with us different ways when we looked at creative financing. But most importantly, you actually shared with us a very small nugget, probably to you, but drastically changed our rent-to-own business. And that was before, when we were acquiring rent-to-own buyers, we actually thought that you only could get 3-5% down. And then you pointed out to us in the room and said, no, guys, you're not getting enough money down. We can get much larger deposits on that. And we actually changed our entire rent-to-own model in regards to asking for more money down from these rent-to-own buyers. So I don't know if I was ever personally able to thank you for that, but you have made us hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars. So thank you, Eddie, and I'm super excited to have you on the show here today.
Thank you. I'm glad you had that success. I can't say that I would have realized that, but sometimes when it's in your skin, you're doing certain things and you just share it, and then if somebody else gets it in their skin, right? They own it.
Oh, for sure. So those of you that have not listened to any of those episodes in which we interviewed Eddie, maybe you can just give a brief introduction of kind of who you are, what your career in real estate has been so far, and then we'll start diving into what's been passionate for you over the coming years now, talking about note buying.
Sure. I started in 1980. I started out as a seller finance note buyer. There was a lot of notes created in the 1980s because of high interest rates. And that was a virgin territory. Not really anybody had ever done it. I got lucky enough to hang out with a couple of people that taught me how to do it. I'd have probably never figured it out on my own if I wouldn't have. But it's been quite a journey. It's my 44th year in the business, and I've bought about 50,000 seller finance notes.
That's absolutely insane to hear you say that you bought 50,000. I mean, I'm proud, and I've done maybe 1,000 creative financing deals and been in this business for 10 years. And then you step in, you're like, yeah, I've actually absolutely destroyed, your pride there. But I that's why I love getting on these podcasts with you. And I know we're going to talk about note buying, but because you stated this, you said the 1980s, because of high interest rates, there was tons of seller financing notes. Do you believe that that's the case right now? because of the high interest rates?
I would say that we're pricing 5 times the amount of notes we were pricing a year and a half ago. And so usually when the banks are in trouble and properties are financed by other ways, sometimes better than the banks, which is kind of what we're seeing right now. Banks are clearly in trouble. Mortgage lenders their loan production is off about 70%. So when you see that market timing says, it's probably time for notes.
That's absolutely 5 times. So how does that then, again, I'm being extremely naive here, I'm sure. If you're seeing 5 times as many notes, how does that affect the overall real estate market? Is that a positive thing? Is that a negative thing? Is it neutral?
Well, as you well know, I mean, Zach, the problem is in conventional real estate to go do it totally conventionally, not buy a house with sub-2 or not get the seller to carry stupid terms at 2% interest. None of that. Just assume you buy a rent house and you're going to go buy it and then get conventional financing and carry it at the bank. It's not on cash flow. You might have to pay 40% down for it to cash flow. Well, that's bad math. And so when people that's what a lot of your listeners, or at least the listeners that I can help.
Yeah.
Like, people say, why would I buy notes? It's pretty simple. Less work, more cash flow. I mean, that's the result of notes versus people doing the traditional rental model. People that have been investing in syndications, and I'm going to be a little bit facetious here for a second, if I can. If you don't know there's a problem in syndications, that's really a problem. Like if you're completely unaware that multifamily has a giant, black cloud over it, you might want to do some research because it is pretty much an industry problem that people are definitely recognizing. So rent houses and multifamily became known as alts, alternative investments to traditional stocks and bonds. So when the math doesn't work for those markets, market timing or, prevailing rates and all of those things, then we are an alternative to the traditional alt, which was those things. And right now, the people that we serve the best are people that have that problem. Right now, at the moment, you're not likely to convince somebody to bail out the stock market and jump into other alternatives. They say after the election that a lot of that could change a lot, but I don't know. That's not my expertise. I'm really a note guy, and that's what I do. That's how I learn creative financing, is because I've seen all these deals. So I would say to you that right now that people are trending in the market the way they're trending because their wallet says they have to do it. People have rentals that don't make income, and so they don't like managing their rentals. Now, that doesn't mean everybody, Zach, and that doesn't mean everybody in your audience doesn't like it. I'm not suggesting that. But I'm saying to you, there are people that aren't in a position that you're in, that they can't do this as well as you can do it. And so this is something they can do with a lot less effort, and it still has really good cash flow.
Of course, I can't let the black cloud. You planted such a big seed there. I had to come back and circle around. So, assuming that the audience is listening to this, and maybe they're considering multifamilies or syndications or anything like that. So, when you say that there's a black cloud over the multifamily space right now, can you be more specific? Because at the end of the day, this is an education platform. We want to make sure our audience is educated. So, I'd love to respond on that.
Well, in the last 18 months, if you're listening to people like John Burns, or you're listening to a number of essentially real estate data experts, market values are down nationwide on multifamily about 25%, right? If you're looking at the resets on multifamily and the predictions in the market, Fannie Freddie's loan production is off about 70%. So they're saying they're not going to save the market. the small banks, the community banks, and the regional banks, other than the top 25 banks, who have about 45% of all their loans in some form of commercial real estate, everybody is pretty much calling for a major disaster. And multifamily was a very pricey product that was trading at a number that could not tolerate rate change. And, there's a kind of a saying in the market that the promoters outweigh the operators. And so somebody in your audience can say, the old man's crazy. I've listened all I'm going to listen to. He's out of his mind. So don't listen anymore to me. Just go spend this time and do Google research. And you're going to find out people like the TREP report, TREPP, which is the gold standard for commercial real estate. That's what those guys are saying. You don't believe me. Go listen to legitimate sources, not the promoters on Facebook, but go listen to the legitimate people that are providing all the data for lenders and underwriters and people that are making significant decisions. And you're going to find out, well, damn, Eddie's already just read this article because that's kind of what he just said. And the answer is that's just the truth. So if somebody is like thinking multifamily is the next horizon, you might be a few years too late on that one.
Okay, so let's assume, right? And of course, this is time for Eddie Speed, right, to give his opinion on the current market, right? Everybody can go ahead and do your research on what's going on with multifamilies, right? And honestly, I mean, I'm in a bunch of inner circles, and everybody screams multifamily. This is the hot thing, right? The Burr method, add value, refinance, keep your multifamily. So if we're essentially saying that, that there's eventually going to be some sort of, and I'm going to use this in quotes, collapse in regards to multifamilies. And what are you suggesting then people go ahead and do? Like, what would be your bets? And I'm assuming you're going to say notes, but I'd love to know, why those bets in today's current market.
Well, I'm going to use my hands because this makes a good chart, right?
I do too. I'm part Italian, Portuguese, and from the Northeast.
So the point is, multifamily is I can't say enough that in pretty sophisticated circles, that ball's been called, right? And so I would challenge the groups you're in,
okay,
a little bit because they need challenging. Just because. If that's the messaging they're getting, you're not going to go do deep, in-depth research and find what they're conveying to be what the smartest money is betting, right? Okay. Once again, people like John Burns have already said the market's gone down in the last 18 months, 25%. Are they saying that? Are they calling that ball? Because that's what the market says.
Sure.
All right. If you buy a property, that's the top of the market, right? That's what you pay for it. If you invest all of that money, if there's any slippage in values, what happens to your part of your capital?
Gone.
Okay. In a for sale, and if you are opportunistic, in other words, if the market is flat, you're okay. If it increases, you are smart. And if it declines any at all, you're going to be complaining about losing your capital. When I buy a note, this is my collateral. This is my investment in the collateral. And I'm buying a loan that is returning principal to me every month. So my investment exposure is going down. You want a math lesson? That's a math lesson on risk management.
Makes total sense, right? I mean, if you guys are not watching this on YouTube, you listen on the podcast, he did have a very good chart by using his hand. So I encourage you to go to our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and watch it just to watch Eddie Speed use his hands.
Well, let's just say the property's worth easy math, $100,000. You pay $100,000. I know you're not buying houses for $100,000, but it's just nice round math, right? I start out at about 75,000, and my investment it's going down at the month after I buy it because I'm getting return of not just interest but principal. And so my investment is amortizing down. Most of the time when you're investment property, you're kind of like the stock market. You're investing and your return is after you sell it. You don't get paid until after you sell it. And the cash flow right now is rentals is really bad. So there's been all kind of articles that have been printed that said, that people's mortgage payment is, 125, 135% of their rent, right? Bigger Pockets has done it. Don Burns has done it. Various people. And I said, well, that tells me that today is the day that I want to be the bank. If I look what a bank was making versus what a landlord was making in 2012, the landlord was making more money than the bank. If I look who's making way more money today, the bank's taking your profit because they're charging double the interest rate, and that's going to their bottom line, and it's going out of your bottom line. Correct? Wait a minute. I can be the bank. I could owner finance my rental and be the bank.
So then walk us through, so if I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this, right, and I know exactly what you're saying, because right now I can rent to own one of my subject to deals or owner financing deals for less than someone go get a mortgage right now. That's why as soon as we put on the rent-to-own market, the amount of people that apply are significant. So if I'm somebody that's trying to now find an alternative, way in order to invest, and buying notes is an option, like, where do you even begin?
Well, first of all, let's start out really simple. A note is a promise to pay, right? A check is a note. If I wrote you $1,000 check, then Zach Beach, here's payable to you, $1,000. I'm gonna date it today from my checking account. Sign it, Eddie Speed. I gave you actually a note. You're gonna run it through your bank account, but it's Eddie's promise to pay, right? That's a note. Now, what we buy are real estate secured loans that they're payable over time with interest, but we buy notes generally at a discount. Now, what does that mean? Okay, so Zach, if you took my $1,000 check and you went to a check cashing service, they might give you $900 for my $1,000 check, right? They're not going to give you $1,000. They're going to buy your note at a discount. Now, when they now own your note, your check for $1,000 payable from Eddie Speed, they're going to run it through their bank account. How much money are they going to get?
$100?
No, they're going to get the full 100. They're going to get the full $1,000. So they bought the note at less than what was owed, but still were legally entitled to collect all that was owed. So I'm a discount note buyer. I could buy, I could have a check cashing service and buy everybody's check for 50 cents on the dollar and still legally collect the full amount that was owed. So the thing is I buy a note that earns interest over time, plus I buy it at a discount.
Got it. No, it makes total sense. So then why would somebody, like, if I have $1,000 check, why would then somebody sell it for $900?
They do it every day of the week. It's a $1 billion a week business.
Right. Here's what I'm hinting at is like, okay, so if I want to start buying notes, who would I be looking for? What types of person, maybe institutions, so that way I can go ahead and buy these notes?
Now, look, I may not be an expert at this. I've only been doing this for about 45 years and closing 1,000 discounted notes. So I may not be your man.
Yeah.
Okay? Probably today, you're going to focus more on the seller finance transaction than you are on institutional loans. There are institutional loans that are sold at a discount, and I'm very connected in that market. But it's going to be hard for you to go buy A1 note from a bank at a discount, right? Mm-hmm. So there's about 100,000 seller finance notes generated every year, right? And we're seeing an uptick right now for the reasons that we've discussed in the market. So there's more notes being generated than there have been in the past. And, there's 100,000 of these notes that are in the marketplace. Now, and of course, I have a school and I teach people how to do this, and we've done it a lot. I don't want to overcomplicate it, but it's a lot different than it was when I started years ago, where I just had to go out in the marketplace and go find a mom and pop and knock on their door and figure out if they you don't have to. There's efficiencies today that are far better than that. But what before somebody decides I even want to buy a note, how do I evaluate a note? How do I determine if it's a good note? How do I figure out how to use leveraging techniques with notes so I don't have to use all of my own money all the time? So those are things that, in addition to finding a note, evaluating a note, that's what we're pretty darn good at, right? And I really, to be honest with you, 25 years ago when I went in the training business, the reason I went in the training business was to figure out how to do business with my students. And so I have a lot of doctors, dentists, engineers, realtors, people with high income, investable capital that say, hey, I've already got a job. I'm not looking to go grind every weekend. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for something that is a strategy that I can do that is duplicatable and takes way less effort and way less aggravation. And when I make an investment, I kind of want to put it to bed. And the nice thing about buying long-term notes is you put it with a servicer, as you well know, you kind of put it to bed. It's just get a check every month. And people would generally say, and you would be somebody that could relate to this because you have a lot of notes yourself. You can own about 1,000 notes for the same work of owning about 70 rentals.
Yeah, for sure. So if I'm sitting there and I'm like, if I'm listening to this and if I can, kind of summarize this, you guys have figured out a way in order to find these notes, analyze these notes, and then determine if if it's worth buying, right? So now the person that's listening to this call, all they have to do is if they have additional capital laying around, right, and they want to get into the investment world, that you guys will provide those for them, and they just have to know by working with you guys in order how to analyze them and pick and choose which deals in order to invest in. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I don't want to give anybody misgivings. I built a school because we can't do business if you don't first go to the school. I'm not trying to be a smart aleck. I'm just telling you that it's not going to be fair to them and it won't be fair to us. There's a process to go through so that they know enough to know what they're looking at, right? Otherwise, I'm running a school one-off at a time, and it's an inefficient way to do it, and it's not enough information for them to make the right decision. So when you came to the school that I had, that was a specialist kind of wing of the school that taught high-volume real estate investors how to buy on terms, right? And we're pretty good at that, right? We were very good at that. But the truth of the matter is, we have a school that's very related to, I want to know how to buy notes. Now I'm going to use my hands, but I'm going to use my marking pencil, right? You like all these little props I have?
This is impressive. You have to go watch this on YouTube now if you're only listening.
All right, this represents a timeline. Okay, this is a timeline. And let's say this is 20 years. Okay?
Yep.
So this is $1,000 a month for 20 years. That's 240 months. That's $240,000. Let's say that I buy that note today. Now remember, all these payments that are due way out in the future, they're not worth what they're worth in the future. They're worth way less today, right? Present value of future dollars. So let's just say that market price for this note, that I buy this note for $80,000. Okay, maybe the principal's $100 plus interest. I buy it at a 20% discount. Okay.
Yep.
but I'm going to get $1,000 a month for 20 straight years. And I buy it for 80 grand. And let's say that I buy this, Zach, in my self-directed Roth IRA account.
Okay.
And I decide I want to recapitalize. And so I sell about 12 years of that 20-year note. Not the whole 20 years, but only the 12 years. And I sell that for $79,000. How much do I now have invested in the back part of the note?
$1,000.
And how much am I going to get back?
You're going to get back, it's like, I think you said 240.
96 months.
Yeah.
96 months at $1,000 a month.
You're really testing me right now, Eddie. You got the pen, and then you're hitting me with math. What? This is some of the things that blew my mind when I was at your note school. And that was, look, you can go ahead and recoup your money and then still get paid on the back end because the other person won too, right? If everyone's keeping up here, I mean, because you sold it for, say, $79,000, but they're getting $120,000 out of it.
The guy that bought the front end of the note is probably getting about a 7% return, and he's getting his money every month, right? He's getting a 7% return on while his money, whatever balance is still owed on his money, and he's getting his investment back. And for his $80,000 investment, he got back $144,000. $1,000 a month, 144 months is 12 years, right? So when you look at it like that, you're like, he didn't lose, but he's not going to go find that deal. He's not going to evaluate that deal. He's not going to put all that together. And so what you're seeing, Zach, here, which you've seen before, I know you've seen that. You know my wife is like really a queen at this, right? It's financial modeling. I just simply showed people how to do financial modeling so that they know how to get a better result than they would if they didn't know how to do it. And most deals, let's be honest about it, the magic in the deal is not the wallpaper you put up or the carpet you put on the floor, it's the financial modeling.
Mm-hmm. Yep, people always ask me, how do you evaluate a deal? I said, I need to know the terms first, the property later. It is like, if they don't have good terms, then there's no point looking at the property. That's exactly, you're saying it doesn't even matter even further now. Just look at the note. And let's make sure the finances are all set on the note, which is extremely impressive.
Yeah.
So you've told me, Eddie, all the good things. Right? We've talked briefly, so I know we're going to tell people where to find you here in just a second because we sat in for like 3 days, and I still had so many questions. But let's talk about. So we talked about the good things associated with it. Tell us what's the negative, right? If there's downsides in every single real estate strategy or financial strategy, then what could potentially go wrong?
The potential to go wrong is that something terrible happens to the borrower and he can't pay, right? Something bad happens in his life and he can't pay. And you could have the loan serviced and they can do a lot of the work for you, including handle the foreclosure. But at the end of the day, you're going to say, I end up owning a piece of property, right? And let me tell you something. The note that you shouldn't buy should always be the deal you pass up. So I'm not ever saying you can't mess up buying a note. That's why I have a school. If you couldn't mess up, you wouldn't need me, right? So there's a risk management, there's an evaluation process. This isn't going to the moon, but there is a process that we teach people looking at thousands of notes over a long period of time, and we've kind of broken it down into a fairly easy scale and a process and a checklist and all that kind of stuff, right? But let's just speak catastrophically for a minute. I paid $80,000 for this note. The property's worth $120,000. Okay, let's just say I'm in the Northeast, which is way more difficult to foreclose in than down here where I am in Texas, right? So let's just pick a more difficult foreclosure process, longer. You got to keep the property insured. You got to have it winterized. Lord knows you got to have it winterized up there, right? And all that happens, and so that's going to make me have some additional money in the deal. So let's say that I end up with, $88,000 in the deal. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I have $8,000 and $120,000 piece of property. In today's market, is that going to be difficult for me to get my money out of the deal?
Of course not.
Okay, so the market condition of a shortage of real estate makes my investment more stable.
So then, Eddie, do you go ahead, just as we're walking down this path in this example, right? Because people ask us the same thing. If a tenant buyer defaults on a rent to own, then what do? You get the property back through an eviction and you go ahead and potentially resell it, or you sell in the traditional market. And this could be deal by deal. That could be a simple answer. But is it, say like 9 times out of 10, you're trying to now go create a new seller note with somebody?
In our case, we would likely owner finance it and resell it with owner financing. But in somebody's case that didn't have the confidence or the time to do it or whatever reason, then they could simply just go sell it through, there's a zillion of these platforms that you know about. There's realtors all over the place that are dying for listings. And so one of the things that has created our market condition says we're the bank, so we're going to get more cash flow than the guy that's renting because we're earning the bank's interest today, which is way more interest than what we were earning, right? So that's why our cash flow is better. That's why we're in a note cycle versus a rental cycle. But on the other side of the market, what's a unique story, and I haven't seen a lot of this in my 44-year career, I'm going to tell you that. There's a shortage of real estate. There's a shortage of houses. There's not a shortage of commercial real estate. That's going to be way more in abundance than we're looking for. But there is a gigantic shortage of residential housing, and statistics are pretty much saying that's probably not going to change. So we're investing where our collateral is not got a high chance of deteriorating in value, right? And so with that being said, my collateral, which I'm the bank, right? I own a mortgage against the property. I don't physically own the property, but my collateral is stable. And so when you've invested for a long period of time like me, analyzing that risk and calculating what can happen was very different in 2024 than it was in 2012. So we're at a good market timing as far as that's the case. And I keep saying this over and over, but it's really important to say this. Remember, I'm buying a loan that they're paying back principal and interest. So I'm getting my investment back along the way. So I don't have to wait till the end. Oh my God, I kept it for 6 years and everything was great. And then all of a sudden the market kind of crashed and then I still had all my money invested. No. You've gotten a lot of your investment back. And that way, so I don't have to go read the market 6 or 8 years from now and tell you what it's going to do then, because I'm making an investment in a note and it's paying back to me. Not only my return, my interest, my reward or for my investment, but I'm also getting my investment back too, because they're paying back principal and interest. So those are risk management variables that are really, really critical, particularly if you're somebody like me that have lived in it for a long period of time, because I've seen a lot of crazy stuff happen.
For sure. Oh, I can't say I've been around that long. But that's why I hang out with people like you, Eddie. So can I assume then a majority of your investments, or you could say all of it, is in residential real estate versus commercial at this point?
We will buy some commercial right now, but it has to be really, really a make sense deal.
Yeah.
And so our percentage, now we buy a lot of residential type land,
Okay.
That's not so much in your neck of the woods, but in our neck of the woods, that's really a big deal. And we buy a lot of that where people are going to then go put something on the land. It could be a mobile home. It could be some kind of a structure or something like that. And that also is along with housing, that trend is a very stable market. So I don't want anybody to feel like Eddie sounds like he's really down on real estate when he's talking about commercial. No, I'm just calling the ball. I'm calling the ball on resi, saying resi's not a problem. It's just, these are market conditions that, you're right. We scrape a lot of data. We look at a lot of information. And with that, then we make decisions. A lot of people just decide up front, well, this is what I want to go do. Well, let the market tell you what you do. That makes sense?
Yeah. So Eddie, if I'm tracking with you, over the 44 years, you've transitioned through different strategies. I'll use strategies lightly, right? Strategies based upon the current market. Is that accurate?
I've had to reinvent myself 6 or 8 times.
So what you're saying is if you had a brand new investor right now or somebody that's been doing a specific thing for, say, the last, I'll use 10 years, as that's what I've been doing, you're saying that, all right, no, now the market is shifting. You're not suggesting to double down on what they're currently doing if it's not necessarily working. It might be getting a result, but maybe not the same result. But instead to look at what's happening in the current market and make your adjustment or your strategy.
What do you think Warren Buffett would do?
Warren Buffett would always be looking for the highest upside with the lowest downside. So if the market is telling him that it's a certain strategy, then I'm guessing he would do that.
So I'm going to do what Warren Buffett would do. I'm going to look at the market and make appropriate adjustments to what the market is telling me. The only thing constant is change.
I love it. Wise words. I have one last question that I want to make sure that for sure if there's, if you want to direct people to a certain place, because I could sit here all day long and ask you these questions, but I know your time's super valuable. You were talking about notes, and what just keep coming to my mind is, are you guys doing anything with wraps, or are you only buying discounted notes?
Most of the time when we do a wrap today, we pay off the underlying debt. So we pay off the underlying deal. Most people that are doing wraps today, there's not a risk variable of the underlying debt versus the wrap note that really says that you would want to step into second position as the note buyer. So I guess I would just have to say it's a little bit case by case, but generally speaking today, we're probably fading away from that.
Got it. Okay. Because of how many seller financing notes are being produced right now, you don't have to, you have a more of an array of actually choosing versus just selecting because they're notes at this point. You can pick better terms.
Look, listen, we are clearly in the top 2 or 3 biggest seller finance note buyers in the United States, and we'll of 100,000 notes created this year, plus all the 100,000s from numerous years, right? We'll take down 1,000 notes this year. There's so much of an inventory of the market that we just don't need to. We don't need to go chase a deal that's too risky.
Makes total sense. And I'm assuming, right, that you're not just using all of your own capital. Are you guys raising money in order to buy more notes and things like that?
We've done all that. What we do now is pretty simple.
Yeah.
People come to Note School, they learn how to do this. And then they come to our sister company, Colonial, and they say, Colonial, you're going to buy 1,000 notes this year. We want Colonial. We want to rent their back office and have them go find a note for me and do the evaluations and do the things that you would do if you were buying it, Eddie, and then I'll figure out how to buy it from you.
Pretty simple to me. Talk about being able to still work your W-2 job and still create the pathway, to financial freedom. You've certainly lined that up. Eddie, if somebody was to want to go ahead and find you guys, get involved in your note school and start buying notes, where's the best place for people to reach you?
Well, what I want to do is I want to give them sort of a path where I can stop using my hands and actually use a more appropriate training tools, and we'll put them to about a 2-hour class. And it's I want to give it to your folks. It's a 2-hour class. It's virtual, but it's live. So they'll come, it'll be like today, it's virtual, and then they'll come in and we'll gather up, we'll have lots of time for questions, we'll show you various things that we do and how we do it and have a lot more clarity. If the financial modeling sounds interesting, we'll make it a lot more clear. So, so this is a class that we charge for, but I want to give something to your audience, and it's going to be pretty simple. You'll go to noteschool.com/smart.
Love it. Noteschool.com/smart. We'll also include it in the show notes. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I will also include it in the notes below as well. Eddie, you're an absolute master when it comes to it's been around for such a long time. I always appreciate you stopping by the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast and spending time with us here. And certainly look forward to doing some deals to do here in the future. Appreciate you coming by.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, guys, that does wrap up another Masters class with Mr. Eddie Speed. For more information, check out the show notes. And guys, I want to encourage you as we journey into 2025 to get yourself into one of the boot camps here at the office. It is absolutely invaluable. We started it as a beta in March, and it has become by far the most effective thing that we've done. So for more information about the bootcamp, you're going to go to smartrealestatecoach.com/ITTB, stands for In the Trenches Bootcamp, ITTB-pod, P-O-D. So smartrealestatecoach.com/ITTB-pod. Can't wait to see you here for the next In the Trenches Bootcamp. You'll have an amazing experience. Make it a great week. See you on the next week's show. Hey guys, are you simply sick of juggling a dozen different software tools for your real estate business? I know I was, and I know I'm not a tech person, so it was frustrating. A subscription for this, you got a subscription for that, and they don't even work together out of the box. That's very frustrating, especially in the real estate world where your best time spent is going to be out in the field or on the phone with sellers, and now you're stuck hiring a tech guru just to make all that sync up. So let's ditch the chaos and let REI Black Book handle everything. Automate your lead follow-up, track every deal, analyze things quickly for you, make offers all in one platform. In fact, with the Wicked Smart platform, we now have access, if you're in the Wicked Smart community, to all the other associates' properties. Can you imagine that? So you're brand new in the business perhaps, and your seller looks on your website and sees 20, 30, 40 properties, instant credibility. So you're going to get everything on REI Black Book from our custom workflows for lead generation all the way to closing. It has it covered. Try it today for just $1, guys. Visit smartrealestatecoach.com/REIBB-DD. smartrealestatecoach.com/REI, B as in boy, B as in boy, hyphen, D as in dog, D as in dog.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast. If you're ready to invest in yourself and take your investing to the next level, check out our 90-day Jumpstart program by going to smartrealestatecoach.com/jump. That's smartrealestatecoach.com/jump, because now is the time to act boldly in this unprecedented market shift.